Hey guys, so I am constantly working in Lightroom and I'm always looking for ways to improve my workflow and be more efficient at editing photos. So these are all things that I have found allow me to edit singular photos very quickly or edit a large amount of photos while saving a ton of time. So we are going to be working in Adobe Lightroom Classic, and if you're not working in this version yet, I strongly urge you to. I think there is a lot more that you can do in this version that allows for a lot more creativity and it can render a better photo. So one of the first things that's really helped me a lot is presets. And I don't mean purchasing presets from other creators. I'm more talking about creating your own to help you improve the time that you're taking to edit photos. So for me, I have created just a basic preset, and it's aptly named Basic, which makes it super simple. And all this preset is a tiny bump up on exposure, nothing with contrast, highlights all the way down, shadows all the way up almost, whites at 18 plus and blacks at almost all the way down. What I find is I am consistently doing this with probably around 90% of the photos that I edit. So having a preset available that I don't even need to do those edits anymore. I can just apply them. Me knowing that I already was gonna do those really just saves me time. Now, like I said, it's obviously not gonna look good for every single photo, but I find that for the majority of my photos, it works. And if you don't know how to make presets, all you have to do is go to this left-hand column over here and find the presets tab and just click this little plus button right here. And it's going to give you an option to create preset. We're just going to name this Basic 2 because it's the exact same as the preset that I already have made. But it's going to come up with all these options for adjustments that you're going to be asked to select and choose for what you want applied to this preset. Now, I only have these basic edits applied, so nothing else that's selected is really going to matter. And just for the sake of this video, once you've got all the edits that you want and selected, just click create. Now, another thing that saves me time with presets is not necessarily creating my own, but just copying and pasting a preset from a photo to another photo that is very similar to it. So for example, I have this photo of a cow and I have this photo of a cow. And these were both taken at the exact same time of day in the same location with the same conditions. So what you can do is you can edit one, copy the edits that you've done, and just paste it onto that next photo. So for example, I'll just edit this real quick. And I'm just gonna call that good right here. Pretty basic edits what I did to this, but now what you can do, click this copy button over here on the left-hand side, and it's gonna bring up the exact same screen as before, but this time I have applied a lot more edits. All you have to do is just select the edits that you've applied. I find that the ones Lightroom selects automatically kind of cover all your bases. So personally, I just leave it like this. And we're just gonna click copy. And now if we go over to our other photo, and paste, it's going to apply that same edit that we just had. Now you don't have to go through and edit as much of it. So even this I think might be a little too bright, so I might just bring down the exposure a little bit. But other than that, the photo is still how I want it to look. When you have a bunch of photos and they're all somewhat similar, shot in the same location, around the same time of day where you're using the same lenses and the same settings, this is such a time saver. If I'm out shooting all day in, say, Rocky Mountain National Park, where it's really nice greens, really nice blues, a lot of good mountainous tones, I usually do this. Obviously it's not going to work every time, but for the most part, like even with this example, you saw that photo was a little brighter than the other one. Maybe my shutter speed was a little different, but regardless, just having to just bump down that exposure a tiny little bit really beats going through and doing all those other edits. I'm really not sure how long my light's been out, but let's just hope it hasn't been too long. Next, I wanted to talk about the Edit in Photoshop tool, and this is something I use very frequently. So since I shoot on Sony, I do get sensor dust every once in a while, and Lightroom has this little tool called the spot removal tool. If we have a photo like this, you can see there's a dust particle here and one here. Lightroom's spot removal tool works okay, but sometimes it kind of looks weird, and more often than not doesn't look as good as it could. So normally I do these types of edits in Photoshop, but what's super nice about Lightroom is you are actually able to directly export into Photoshop. And how you do this is you go to Photo and go to Edit In. Normally people just do Edit in Adobe Photoshop, but to save a little more time, I do Open as Smart Object because I already know that I'm going to be editing this photo directly. All that we will have to do once we open it in Photoshop is rasterize it. So basically you have to convert to a smart object and rasterize an image to be able to directly edit it. But once we get it opened in Photoshop, this is generally where I would do my masking and photoshopping, just because Lightroom's spot removal tool is not very good. For a photo like this, I would probably edit out these signs and these cars, and there's a couple things up here that aren't super noticeable, but if I were to print this photo they would be. So I will probably go ahead and edit these out too. And Peter Mckinnon actually has a really good video on masking people out of your photos and other objects and stuff. And I left a link to it in the description just because I think he does a way better job of explaining it than I could ever do. So definitely, if you don't know how to mask your photos and edit people out of them, go check out that video because it's helped me a lot. And I'm sure if you don't know how to do it, it would help you a lot too. So I'm just gonna go ahead and edit everything out of this photo, and then we will get right back into it. So once you have finalized your edits and you have edited everything out of your photo that you want, all you have to do now is go to File and click Save. And what this is going to do is this is just automatically going to save it back into Lightroom as a raw file. There's still a lot of info that is saved in the photo. And so if I really wanted to, I could go ahead and edit this even more. And although I'm not doing this for every single photo, I do it enough to where this saves me a lot of time. So the last things that I wanted to talk about are just a few little kind of tips and tricks that I have learned throughout using Lightroom so much. So a big thing that I use constantly, and that is just double clicking on the name of your edit to reset it to 0. If you decide that you actually don't like this edit and you want to drag it back to 0, that takes a lot of time, and trying to get it perfectly to 0, it's kind of a hassle. So to save time, just double click the name. Another thing that I use is the white balance selector, which is this little drop tool. And all you gotta do is find a neutrally white source point. Basically, it's just to try to balance out your photo into what it would have actually looked like in person while you were snapping that photo. So you can do this, and as you can see, it changed the tint a little bit to +3. Usually I do it before I start editing a photo, just so I have a good starting point to what the photo should look like. Another thing is the dash button on the keyboard, and all this does is give you a look for before and after. So you can kind of see how far you've come, maybe what you need to fix, maybe what doesn't look right, just really any improvements that you need to make. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is the navigator tool. I use this only when I'm using the brush tool. I honestly use the brush tool a lot. It's great for highlighting background things such as these buttes or mountains or something like that, or maybe even this road. But the only thing that's bad about it is while you're using it, if you're zoomed in, just trying to be extremely precise, you can't scroll down. All it does is change the size. What I used to do is I used to deselect, drag down, select again, and then have to find that original starting point, which was just a real pain. So instead of that, what I do is I just use this navigator tool in the top left, and I can kind of move with the brush as I'm painting. So I can just keep moving down. This is something that I didn't really know about until very recently. So now I use it a lot. So anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. I really hope that you got some value from this, maybe learned something. If not, I'm glad you stuck around to the end. I just wanted to say thank you. I just hit 300 subscribers, which is like, doesn't seem like that much when PewDiePie has like almost 98 million, but like for me, that's pretty big. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video. Later.